Hello and welcome to Smaulgld. In case you missed the top gold, silver, and crypto stories for the week ended May 13th, 2018. Russian internet troll farm to Mueller. Prosecute us. Is the Mueller investigation winding down just as the IG report is set to be published? We're going to be talking about developments in the Mueller probe. Lower inflation is blamed for higher gold prices. And there's a report that the FBI planted a mole in the Trump campaign. Cryptos fall on upbeat raid in South Korea and Mt. Gox selling. And all eyes are now on the Consensus Crypto Convention in New York City this coming week. Report out that poverty makes you dumber, and North Korea announced that it would dismantle its nuclear testing site in advance of meeting with the United States. And we had a busy week on the Smaulgld YouTube and BitChute channels. SRS Rocco, Wealth Watchman, and Salivate Metal all joined us on the Smaulgld subscribers sound off and gave some very fine interviews, so you can check those out. This is probably the last week I'm going to be promoting, I suppose, these silver bullion cryptocurrency rounds. Last chance to get them through Smaulgld, the Litecoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Monero, Zcash, Ripple, silver rounds. Check them out. They're 1 ounce, $9.99 silver, and Smaulgld gets a small commission if you do indeed purchase one or any or all of them. So please consider that, and also please consider becoming a Smaulgld patron and donating a small or large amount every month. And also please consider donating via PayPal, Bitcoin, and or Litecoin. Smaulgld's Moronica is out. It is not published on YouTube anymore. It is only published on BitChute, so check it out. The link is below. It's also on the Smaulgld site, or just head over to BitChute and type in Smaulgld, and you'll see all of the Smaulgld Moronica. Gold and silver this week. Gold up $2, silver up about 12 cents. That was on a bigger percentage basis than gold. So finally, the gold-silver ratio dipped below 80 and is at 79.7. Poverty and intelligence. Just cover some of these odd stories that we saw during the week. They're not moronic, but they seem a bit odd. So this study says poverty changes your brain to make you less intelligent. The study suggests, and it says when you have financial difficulties, your IQ goes down. Now, I'm not quite sure that these studies don't start with a premise and then try to prove it. But I suppose the flip side to poverty changing your brain to making you less intelligent, you would think then, well, if you got more rich, if you ran into some money, that you would become smarter. Not so sure. I think they're trying to make a point that you become poor because... No, you become less intelligent because you're poor, not you're poor because you lack intelligence. I'm not suggesting that if you're poor, it's from a lack of intelligence, but I think that's what they're trying to get at here, is that somehow being poor makes you less intelligent and not the other way around, but they don't suggest that being rich makes you smart. Now, the Cohen leaks, we had mentioned, when was the day that they raided Cohen. The first thing I thought of was, this is the way that Mueller and team can get a chance to do their own due diligence on the case without actually having to do some research. They'll just raid the lawyer's office and sift through the documents. And I thought the best thing there, well, not the best thing, but I knew what they were going to do was somehow allow someone in the press to figure out what's in there, even if it wasn't damaging from a legal perspective, that it could make Trump look bad. And that's exactly what happened. This Michael Avenatti guy, who's the lawyer for Stormy Daniels, somehow has leaked information about what's in Cohen's bank records. Now, how he would get that information, well, he didn't do any sleuthing. He didn't knock the door down to Cohen's house, so he must have gotten it somehow. And again, this is the type of tactic we're seeing from the supposed Justice Department and the FBI. And now, Treasury Department Inspector General opens federal probe on how Stormy Daniels' lawyer got Cohen's bank intel. What I've seen in watching and observing this entire methodology of the FBI and the DOJ over the past 2 or 3 years, starting with the Hillary Clinton email investigation, it appears to me a series of intentional missteps or just complete incompetence that have allowed what's happened to go on so far, the exoneration of Hillary Clinton when she clearly committed violations, the way they conducted the investigation, the way they exonerated her in advance, the people's, now that we've learned their bias towards her was definitely in her favor. You had the Attorney General saying to call it a matter, not a criminal investigation. You had Comey, McCabe bending over backwards to change the language to make sure that she was just not grossly negligent, but that she was just extremely carelessness and thereby avoiding prosecution. Also claiming that no reasonable prosecutor would bring a case on these facts, which is complete absurdity. Any prosecutor would have taken the case. And then how they created the go after Donald Trump based on the Pfizer warrant, which was based on a dossier from foreign intelligence from Russia that contained unverified and salacious information and was paid for by the Clinton campaign and was used as the basis to get not just one warrant, but to continue to get warrants. And also the current Deputy Attorney General, Rosenstein himself, used that to get a FISA warrant. And he's the one who's now supervising the special counsel, Robert Mueller, who was appointed on the basis of a request by Comey, who leaked his supposed or possibly classified information from a couple of meetings that he had with Donald Trump, and that was used as the basis to appoint Mueller, which is basically leaks to professors who also happen to be his lawyer. And then this was from a guy who was already fired, and guess who recommended firing him? Rosenstein wrote a long letter explaining why if you didn't get rid of Comey, the FBI would never be the same in the eyes of the public and we could never regain trust. So the procedures that have been taking place here are astounding, and also the special counsel's appointment by Rosenstein. The reason Rosenstein appointed him is because Sessions recused himself, and that left Rosenstein to do the appointing. Normally, when you appoint a special counsel, the idea is to look for a specific crime. Well, no crime was specified in the original appointment of Mueller. And then they expanded his powers. And that's all coming back now to bite them because, first of all, if there's no crime to investigate, then what is there a special counsel for? And if the whole looking into Trump in the first place was based on or politically motivated, and there wasn't a real reason to issue FISA warrants if there was abuse there, all this is going to come out, I would imagine, if the Inspector General does his report properly, and he seems to have done so in the recommendation of firing McCabe. Some of Comey's behavior is not orthodox. The fact that he made a recommendation to the Attorney General when all he's supposed to do is investigate whether to prosecute or not, and then he made an agreement with Loretta Lynch that she would do what he said because she was compromised because she had met with Bill Clinton during the investigation on a tarmac at an airport in Arizona. The whole thing is, none of it is orthodox. And the reasons that you would go beyond protocol and you would do things outside of would be extreme circumstances. And it seems that the extreme circumstances here are the desire to exonerate Hillary Clinton and the desire to knock down Trump. But neither of those are how the Department of Justice and the FBI should work. They should be going after justice. And if Hillary Clinton had committed crimes, whether they like her or not, well, then she should have been prosecuted. And also, if there wasn't significant evidence that Donald Trump was subject to blackmail because he had hookers peeing on a bed, then you don't pursue it. You don't wiretap. You don't raid his lawyers' offices. All the things that they've done to try to get him, and it's quite obvious, as we've seen with a lot of the attorneys general, that was their main goal, was that they knew that their bread was buttered on the side of Hillary Clinton winning, and all the insiders that have been in government for years have a certain world outlook, it seems, and they wanted that to continue. And as we're seeing, they knew that Donald Trump would shake up the apple cart, not just with things like tax cuts, but things like getting rid of the Iran deal, and possibly even looking into the procedures and methods at the FBI and the DOJ. And I think that's what's happening right now. And I think Mueller is coming to the end of his probe, because the judge the other day, in a part of the Manafort case, was asking, why is this guy even being prosecuted for something in 2004 that he did with a bank wire to the Ukraine? What power do you have to investigate that? You're supposed to be looking into Russian collusion. Manafort's got nothing to do with Russian collusion. It's something to do with bank wire fraud or income tax in 2004. So please show me the documents. Well, they haven't shown the documents that authorize, and the Congress is asking for them too. So there's a lot of pressure now on Mueller and Rosenstein to wrap this thing up. And it's a little further down, but we might as well cover it now. The other black eye that the Mueller team got the other day, in addition to being chastised by a judge for basically doing anything they can just to find something to get Trump through Manafort. But if you remember, we covered this about a month or so ago. To great fanfare, the Mueller team indicted a bunch of Russian internet troll farms, which I thought was a joke, because Russian internet troll farms, I mean, they buy ads on Facebook and in Twitter, probably perfectly legal to do so, and they only spent a couple of $1 million. And yes, maybe it was in their intent to interfere with the election, but I guarantee you, so many people are doing that, so many foreigners are doing that. They wanted to get a consensus out there that, yes, you see, Russia was involved, and it's only a matter of time until we find some type of Trump collaboration. Well, the interesting that happened over the last few days with the Russian troll farm indictment was they thought they were going to get this big pop in sentiment to say, see, we're going after them, we've identified these Russians, and they thought at the time that that would be a big PR coup, and it was, but they also miscalculated. They thought that they would never have to prosecute these pesky Russians because they'd probably already gone back to Russia, and this way they would get all the benefits of saying that they were prosecuting and indicting these Russian troll farms, and that would be the end of it. Well, what happened the other day was two things. One, they indicted a troll farm company that didn't exist at the time of the 2016 elections. So they look a little bit incompetent there. You know, you're just trying to name a bunch of people, say you got an indictment, get the press coverage, and then go away. Well, Mueller indicted the proverbial ham sandwich, says lawyer for Russian companies in troll farm case. The fact that they're calling it a troll farm case also makes it look like this is pretty ridiculous, that this is what they've come up with. They're suing troll farms. Okay, but this one is even better than just suing a company that didn't exist at the time. There was a company that existed at the time, and the Mueller team thought that they would just go away and you never hear from them again. Well, they show up in court and they say, okay, prosecute us. What did we do wrong? Show us your case. You know, you have to ask for discovery. You get to see what they have. You get discovery going back and forth, and that's how they get to defend themselves. Well, the Mueller team never expected them to even pretend to defend themselves. They thought they would just go away, having been shamed into being called a collaborator or interferer with our democracy and all the other terms they were using at the time. Well, the Russians show up at court and say, sue us and prosecute us, do what you got to do, and let's see what you got. And the Mueller team said, well, we're not ready yet. And the judges, what do you mean you're not ready yet? He says, well, they weren't properly served. And they said, well, why weren't they properly served? And they said, well, because the Russian government didn't help us. Now, here you have the defendants, the troll farm, showing up and saying, go ahead, take us out. Tell us what you got. And the Mueller team is not ready to do it. Now, this is a problem. The court says, I'm not giving you any time. I mean, you're the one who brought the case. You should be ready to prosecute these guys, throw them in jail, whatever you want to say you want done to them. The danger in this course to Mueller is that they receive tremendous PR for having indicted these firms. Well, they can only go one of two ways now. They have to either drop the case, in which case they can drop it and say, well, we didn't file the papers right, and, you know. Well, then they're going to look like the Keystone Cops. Then they're going to look really foolish and incompetent. And why would you think they'd be competent to investigate Trump if they can't properly indict a Russian troll farm? So that could be one thing that could happen with or they can try to prosecute them, and but that would be kind of a joke watching that case. They waste resources trying to prosecute one of the entities that bought stupid memes on Facebook and Twitter. So they could also see, if they drop the case, they're going to look really foolish no matter what they do. And if they prosecute the case, they're going to look foolish. So I've been saying all along that this whole thing was designed to, they figured they could have hounded Trump out of office in a few months and impeach him. But as time goes on, it's becoming more apparent that to more people, see, there's people that just are so hateful of Donald Trump for whatever reason. I'm not saying it's justified, not justified. They're not looking at this rationally. They're looking at it from the resistance, and he must go, and whatever Mueller does, it's Mueller time. But they're not actually seeing what he's doing. He's not really doing anything, and the entire process is not following a normal route. And the real danger is if you condone these type of unorthodox actions, as a way of, you lose the election, so you put the DOJ and the FBI on the case to try to undo it. That's the wrong signal, because what could happen is Mueller fails in this, and then Trump gets elected, if a second term, puts all his people in there, and they turn around and do it to their opponents. Once you set the precedent that this is okay, that basically you lose, and then the next few days you figure out a way to get him for obstruction of justice. And the obstruction of justice is justice from the case that they made up against him, because he didn't want that case to go on. So we'll see what happens. But I actually think that this Mueller will finally decide he's going to back out of this thing. He doesn't want to be around, I don't think, when the Inspector General report comes out. And it isn't just critical of McCabe, but of Rosenstein, of Page, Strzok, Mueller, Comey, and others in the Justice Department and the FBI. And these are people who he worked with, was appointed by. Then not only is he not being successful in his probe, and people are starting to criticize his actions, and he's got to deal with the Manafort case judge, and he's got to deal with the Russian troll farm. He's got to prosecute them or drop the case. He's going to look like as he was appointed by these people that the Inspector General's report has probably chastised. And we'll see. That's my prediction. I don't think the Inspector General is going to come out and say everything they've done in this procedure was normal. Because if those are normal procedures, then you might as well rewrite the book on how the FBI and the Department of Justice should work. All right, let's move on from that. And what else we got? There's a new narrative. It's starting to, there's a lot of attention on Pence. And the reason I think there's a lot of attention on Pence is he's always been there. And he's always rubbed a lot of the left wing the wrong way for his Christian views. He doesn't see women independently. They make fun of him for that. But what's interesting about that is he's not going to be part of the Me Too movement. He's not going to be near any women to do, as we've seen with some of the, with Schneiderman was accused of doing. But in any event, the idea now, I believe, is they're realizing that this talk of impeaching Trump is probably not going to be a winning 2018 midterm election issue. And if his approval rating is about 50% or even 45%, it's not going to fly. And also, based on impeach him for what? There has to be a crime or misdemeanor. So I think what they want to do is they want to back out of the impeach Trump mentality, and they want to also backpedal, give Mueller some room to backpedal and basically wind this thing up. And I think what they want to do is they want to portray Pence as worse than Trump. So maybe they want to acknowledge that, well, you know, Trump does some things okay and the economy is okay, but the worst thing that can happen is that you get this Pence guy in, and he's homophobic, he's ultra-Christian, and so we're starting to see those types of articles, and I think that's a setup to allow the anti-Trump fervor for impeachment to kind of die off because, hey, careful what you wish for, you're going to get Pence. Dollar collapse. Yeah, so this guy here, I don't know who he is. Looks important. His name is Russell Napier. But he says the rising dollar will trigger the next systemic banking crisis. I agree with that. The real issue in the world, in the financial system, is not the U.S. debt. It is the debt by all the foreign countries, the reliance on the dollar. If the dollar goes higher, well, then all the debt that they owe in dollar-denominated debt gets more expensive. It's not the dollar collapse you got to be worried about. It's the collapse of all these emerging countries, including China, which is also a dollar-based financial system. Post-gold, back petro-yuan, dollar hits strongest levels of 2018. Yeah, and all this is because, remember, the Fed could never raise rates. The Fed could never reduce its balance sheets. All the gold pumpers are always saying that. And the next move for the Fed is a rate cut, even after they raised it for the first time. But they were saying before the first rate hike, back at the end of 2000, the Fed could never raise rates. And then they raised them again. They could never raise rates. And they raised them again. They could never. They're going to reduce them. And then after they raised them 5 times, well, I was more right than other people who thought they would raise them 10 times. Okay, that's not being right. That's being wrong. He was wronger than me doesn't make you right. But here we go. Permian 3.0 shows U.S. biggest oil field May something or other. Well, it just goes back to my point that if you need a backing for the petrodollar, it might be backed by world-leading production at the United States and world-leading exports. By the way, I did a Silver Doctors podcast with James Anderson and over at Silver Doctors. That'll be up in probably next week sometime, so be on the lookout for that. I will let you know when that comes out. Okay, April was best month in history for U.S. budget according to CBO figures. What does that mean? Well, it looks like the government is collecting more money. That must mean the economy is getting better. It must mean people are making more money, and therefore they're paying more taxes. Now, I'm not suggesting that the United States is going to earn its way out of its budget. The deficits, they're way too big. However, it does show that the United States can reduce its deficit, can raise interest rates, and can reduce its balance sheet. So we'll see what happens, and I'm just not predicting the dollar collapse anytime soon. It's a dollar hegemons higher against the gold-backed petro-yuan. There it is, petrodollar backed by more U.S. oil. Keeps going and keeps going. Yeah, this is just a point. I was having an argument with somebody, but you know, defending the people who said they could never raise rates and then saying, well, they didn't really raise them that much. Well, no, I always said that they would raise rates. I always said how much they'd raise them, a few times. Not they could never, would never. Of course, I'm not a famous prognosticator, so I never got credit for those calls. But the people are saying, oh, well, you know, it's like saying a weatherman predicts sunny skies and calm weather, and then it rains, and you have a little wind, and he says, oh, I'm right because there wasn't a storm. No. You're wrong. You said sunny skies and calm weather, and it was raining a bit, and there was 10 to 20 mile an hour wind. So you're wrong. The person who said it would be sunny with calm weather, he's right. dollar collapse. There's your thing. Now here's something that I don't know who to give credit to, but the source is National Central Bank, City Research, source S. Barlow, R-O-B. This is a point I've been making all along, is that China is the debt monster. Everybody ratcheted up debt, but then it kind of stopped after Q. Look at China. It just continues. It gets worse and worse and worse. Billions and trillions of dollars. China is the debt monster. That's what people who gold bugs keep pointing to the U.S. Dollar collapse, too much debt. No argument there. Lots of debt. It's the Chinese debt that is growing exponentially. By the way, I'm not making this stuff up. This is an article I wrote here. The Fed will raise interest rates 2015, June, when everyone was saying they could never. May 2016, if the Fed has to, they will raise interest rates again. Bingo right and bingo right again. All right. Enough tooting of the horn. Something people say don't do enough of. All right. Now, John Kerry, Trump, first of all, people need to understand that the Iran deal was never a treaty signed by or ratified by Congress. Wasn't signed by the Russians. It's just some type of memorandum of understanding. In fact, I had pulled the letter from the Secretary of State, and basically it said this is not a signed deal. This is something that allows us to get in and out and to reimpose sanctions if they mess up. It's not a treaty like the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This is just a deal that Obama and his administration got together, got some European nations to agree to, but it's not a signed binding agreement, and that's why Trump was able to basically unilaterally get rid of it. Remember, Obama went through his period, if Congress won't act, I'll act. I've got a phone and I got a pen. And he just went and did stuff by executive order and so on. Now, the problem with that is, besides it being unconstitutional, which no one pays attention to, is that all that stuff can be undone by the next person. Same thing. These tactics where you just don't follow the rules, you try to get a result any way you can. Well, if you don't get the result, it's almost like you get one shot at taking out the king. And after that, you're screwed because they're going to come after you. There's your inflation numbers. Now, the inflation is coming in softer. Now, for the Fed, that's a disaster because they're trying to get they want a higher inflation rate. But they're trying to say, and this is nonsense, that gold went higher because the inflation numbers were lower. And I understand the limited rationale there is that, well, then the Fed won't raise interest rates. But that's wrong. If you have low inflation, that doesn't augur well for gold. See, they try to make it look like the Fed controls everything. It's all about the Fed. That whatever the Fed does is what they want that to be the narrative. That gold's only going up because we have inflation, but we're going to get inflation under control. We're going to get 2%. Then you won't have to worry about gold because there won't be that much inflation. It won't be too much. It won't be too little. So why bother? Fed's got everything under control. And the only reason that gold is going up is the Fed doesn't quite have everything under control because they're not getting as much inflation as they wish. There's Trump complaining about Lisa Page and Peter Strzok. And he says, question, why is this guy still? This woman finally resigned. This guy was part of I think both the Clinton email investigation and the Trump. He was definitely on the Trump prosecution, whatever they're trying to do to him. And then they found these text messages. Well, they didn't find them. But, well, they claimed, the FBI claimed they found them. But they were very anti-Trump, so they sent this guy to personnel. So basically, he's not on the team. I don't know where she was sent, but he's still at the FBI, still has a job. But, I mean, he's in personnel. And remember what Clint Eastwood said about personnel when he got reassigned there? Personnel is for assholes. It seems Mueller wants only an oral sit-down interview. Yeah, this is the case with Trump. Why should he even bother sitting down with Mueller? The questions they want to ask him are stream of consciousness to get him just to talk, and then they get him into a perjury trap. No point in him doing that. He's not going to do that. I think the IG report's going to come out before long, and it's not going to take kindly to the methods and processes that were engaged in at the FBI. It just seemed that they were all too much, they were colluding together, basically, to exonerate Hillary and to go after Trump. Now, this is astounding. Trump probably already knew this, I think, and saw the documents. But the Wall Street Journal is reporting the FBI hit a mole in the Trump campaign. And these guys were so bent on keeping the current administration in power through continuation through Hillary Clinton. She was part of the Obama administration as Secretary of State. One can argue that the Bush-Obama, and even if McCain had won, that was all a direct succession of the same people. Brennan, Clapper, Mueller, Comey. These people have been all in these administrations for years. And they all developed, I like to say, well, they're Republicans. Yeah, but they're the Republicans like McCain's a Republican. All right, let's see what else we got here. I actually think, they're saying that they had somebody on the inside of the campaign. The way Sessions is acting, one could argue he was an insider from the start. He was a very early supporter of Trump, got himself appointed as the Attorney General, and has not acted in any way, shape, or form in favor of Trump. He's actually protected Rosenstein and recused himself, and thereby, basically, Trump doesn't have an Attorney General. Yeah, this is our troll stuff here. Okay, Korea. That's just big news. Trump managed to get 3 Korean hostages out of Korea, and he's also going to have a summit with Korea. And one thing that really, really irks people, North Korea announces plans to dismantle a nuclear test site. Something that really pisses off insiders, infuriates them more than anything else, is when an outsider does something better than they do. Right now, Kerry, Obama, Hillary, they were screaming and yelling that he doesn't know what he's doing in Korea, he doesn't know what he's doing in Iran. And no matter what he does, and no matter if he manages to get good results in Iran or North Korea, they'll be mad that the process that they would have gone through wasn't followed, and they'll resent him for his success. It's interesting, they're the same people complaining about process, and they're the ones who went totally off book in the Clinton investigation and in the way that they're having a special prosecutor investigate Donald Trump. Well, there you go. Let's get into China. Chinese surveillance program mines data from workers' brains. Well, that's another one the gold bugs must love, because they're going to back the yuan with gold and end dollar hegemony, but while they're mining data from workers' brains. That's a golden way of looking at things. But they've got gold, right? As long as China has gold. End of multipolar world. End of dollar hegemony and all that. That's what we keep hearing from the gold pumpers. We keep hearing that this is a good thing that China's doing by creating at least a bipolar world. 2020, China plans to give all of its 1.4 billion citizens a personal score based on how they behave. And I like when they say, oh, America's just like that. No, it's not. There is a constitution. There is something you can do about it. You can go on the internet. Yes, there are an encroachment of civil liberties in the United States. There's too much corporate control. There's lots of surveillance that perhaps shouldn't be done, but it's nowhere near the level of what's happening in China. What's this? Gold back yuan, game changer, end of dollar hegemony. That's all they keep saying. That's going to be a good thing. Yeah, that's all citizens are going to get. If China turns to tech to monitor, shame, and rate its citizens. Gold back yuan. It's all about the gold. Gold back petro yuan. What's this? Gold back petro yuan. What if this and what if that? Then gold would skyrocket. Oh, China's worried about bond fund liquidity and transparency. Sure they are. They're worried about the liquidity. I doubt they're worried about transparency. And that was a chart that we showed you. Now this guy here, you need to know him. He's the Anbang founder. This huge state-owned enterprise insurance company in China. Massive assets. They bought stuff in the U.S. They built the Waldorf Astoria. Well, this guy's going to get to prison for fraud, $10 billion fraud. But I think he's the fall guy. I think he was doing everything they wanted him to do, and now they realize it doesn't look good, so he's going down. Iran's gold demand set for spurt before Trump's sanctions. I see people cheering on. Well, Iran, no, they're gonna eliminate the dollar, and they're gonna go somewhere else, and they're gonna buy Bitcoin, and they're gonna go on the SIP system with China. This is a good thing to end dollar hegemony. Okay, Move to Iran if that's, I think that's a good thing. All right, Turkey. Turkey's buying gold. Yeah, but the reason Turkey's buying gold is because its currency is cratering, just like Argentina, just like all the third, as we mentioned, the emerging countries are not doing well. Now, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies dipped during the week, but they've been recovering the last day or so. But they dipped very hard on the basis of that they think, and I've never understood why altcoins would dip if Mt. Gox sells to Bitcoin. They think the main reason is that this exchange in South Korea was raided, but South Korea's biggest exchange, but I don't see why that would make the cryptocurrencies go down, because the reason they were raided wasn't because they were against the cryptocurrencies. They were against the exchange owners because they thought the exchange owners were selling people cryptocurrencies that they didn't have. That's actually a good thing. That's good regulation. That's not bad regulation. If you're going to go to an exchange and you want to buy, I don't know, whatever you're going to buy there, whatever cryptocurrency suits your fancy, you want to give them the money, and you want to make sure that they don't say, okay, you got 6 Bitcoin, 3 this and 2 that, when you don't have jack. I would think that if the regulation would try to make sure that they actually had what they said they had and were trying to sell to you, that would be a good thing. So much on logic, but sentiment for almost for whatever reason. Now, there was another scare with Ethereum. There was this supposed meeting that was going to happen with the SEC. There was a hearing that was going to happen on a particular day last week. It was under regulatory scrutiny, and they were going to determine whether it was a security or not. Well, there was no such meeting planned, but there were a lot of speculation on, well, if Ethereum is a security, what's going to happen? And my point on Ethereum being a security, it's possible that the initial coin offering for Ethereum, although you didn't get any stake in any company, you might get away with calling that a security. But the aftermarket trading, see, when you buy a stock, an IPO, you're buying an interest in the company. And if you buy that stock 8 months later, you're still buying a stock interest in that company. So you're still buying a security. But if you're not buying the original coin offering for Ethereum, at least, and forget other ICOs, the reason the original coin offering they wanted was to get money, get the thing set up. So you were kind of maybe getting the benefit of the Ethereum. But then once Ethereum is trading, and then after it splits from Ethereum Classic into just Ethereum tokens, the people that got the Ethereum tokens weren't getting anything other than just another currency. So yes, the people that founded the company and issued the initial Ethereum tokens, they, I think, could be said to have perhaps issued a security. But people who bought thereafter, and especially people who bought Ethereum, not Ethereum Classic in the aftermarket, they're not buying a security. They're just buying just another token. But we'll see. Anyway, I don't think it's a security. I don't think it ever was, as this article says here. But that drove the price down for a while. I think potential outcome for SEC, if the ETC initial offering may be considered security, but unlikely. But Ethereum will not be considered security because it was never offered as it was a fork of ETC. You didn't get anything in the ETC or ETH company. You just got a token. But if ETC and ETC are deemed to be securities, then just about every other token offering would also be, which would leave just pure cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and to a lesser extent Litecoin as others not deemed to be securities, and all the crypto money would have to go into those, and no money would go into those other types of unregistered ICOs. You'd have to wait for a whole raft of new ICOs to come out that are registered with the SEC. Well, Bitcoin, now the pumping starts. Litecoin network will unlock monster gains. This guy here, report New York Stock Exchange owner ICE weighs Bitcoin trading platform. That kind of wasn't, they didn't make much of a big deal of that. That is a big deal. And that pumper on CNBC, Brian Kelly, made a big deal out of it. Larry Summers, this is interesting, former U.S. Treasury Secretary, who claims you can have blockchain without Bitcoin. He seems to be pretty much against Bitcoin, but he's an advisor to Axpo, a Bitcoin wallet, $40 million in venture capital funding. So interesting that he's got both feet in the thing Now here, the wealthy are hoarding 10 billion in Bitcoin. This looks like a gold vault, but this is where all of the like 8 or 9% of the world's Bitcoin are held in these bunker, and it's Expo, whatever it's called. This company that Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary, I think he's either on the board or he's an advisor, but he's definitely involved. This is a big deal. Huawei's mobile phones are to be able to download Bitcoin wallets on their devices. The reason it's a big deal, that's China's largest mobile phone maker. Now here, crypto's cracked this fund strat. That's Tommy Lee. Who is he? Says that Bitcoin's going to go to 36,000 by a year, whatever. It's always going up. But you can see cryptos have been crushed by Mt. Gox, NVIDIA. That's a chip maker saying. This one's odd. They had these massive chip sales in the first quarter, and they said they're going to go down in the second quarter. Well, of course they are. There's a limit to how many chips. The growth isn't going to be as great. How many chips are going to be sold? And the South Korean exchange rate we just covered. You want to make sure that when you buy something on an exchange, the exchange is selling it to you. But here comes the pumps up to 10, 10,000, 50,000, 300,000. But there's the rate on the crypto, and it rattled the Bitcoin market. It shouldn't have. But now, this consensus meeting is coming up. I think it's sponsored by CoinDesk. And it's gone from a 500-person conference in 2015, 2016, 2,700, 2017. They're expecting 4,000 to 5,000 people to show up tomorrow, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the price has always risen after this conference. So, for example, last year, Bitcoin was $1,400 a month before the conference, and when it was all over, it was at $2,200, up 55%. So if you're pumping Bitcoin, you would say it was at $8,000, $8,100 on March 27th, and by May 27th, a 55% gain would put you back at $12,600. Marshall Islands to make cryptocurrency legal tender in 2018. That's a big development. You have to accept Bitcoin. Here's Buffett again. Remember, you can't bribe or lobby gold. You know, gold doesn't pay dividends. So that's right. But gold also doesn't default. Didn't produce anything. Warren Buffett, well, I have no time for him. I think for the last 25, 30 years, he's not been an investor. He has been, who knows. Yeah, you can't lobby Bitcoin. Here, this is MSNBC. They're always praising this guy. Buffett explained something people still don't understand about Bitcoin. Yeah, you can't lobby it. You can't buy special voting rights with a big investment. And you can't get an implicit or explicit guarantee the government will bail out your investment. That's what people don't understand about Bitcoin, Mr. Buffett. Yeah, Bitcoin's worthless artificial gold. Yep. Gates would short it. Remember when he wanted to invest in CD-ROMs? They were going to be the future and the way forward. This visionary. He wrote crappy software, and it was only the world's leading software, not because it was the best, but because he engaged in, to his credit, business-wise, monopolistic practices. Otherwise, I'm not thinking that Gates is any type of visionary. He knows much about anything. Now he's involved in genetics and healthcare and Common Core. He's got too much money. Not that one can have too much money, but he does. Well, here's all the stuff on Ethereum we already talked about. I'm not going to get into that. Again, now gold. Oh, so our special guests, we had Steve St. Angelo during the week on from SRS Rocco. He talked about the Trump effect, declining precious metal sales, perhaps as a result of people putting too much faith in the Trump administration. Here's your story about, used to be inflation that drove gold higher. Now it's soft U.S. inflation pushes gold higher. I think that's nonsense. Okay, Indian imports in April plunged 39%. I'm going to have to look at that. You see, sometimes when they do this plunge stuff, it's because the comparable month the year before was really high, like an outlier. I don't know if that's the case. I will check on that for you. China not so gold friendly. China's central bank issues draft guidelines on online gold businesses. So they're trying to hinder gold businesses from selling gold unless they have all their papers in order. Interesting story here. I never understood this one, but now I get it. So the World Gold Council, you can't see it here, says that 90% of the world's gold has been mined since the gold rush of 1849. Wow, that means there was very little gold, comparatively speaking, in the right after the gold rush. So when this Central American steamship sunk in 1857, it lost 10 tons of gold. And I thought, it's not a big deal. I mean, Russia buys 220 tons a year. Yeah, it was a big deal back then. That was a big percentage of the world's gold. And that set off a panic. And I never understood why that would set off a panic. Half the money, not half, but a good chunk of the money just went down and wasn't, back then they didn't recover it. It sunk. It's at the bottom of the ocean. No way of getting at it in 1857. Now, this story says that India is buying gold again. When I say India, the Reserve Bank of India, it's 2.5 tons of gold to reserves. Now, they haven't done that in over a decade. I'm not sure they did. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. It's possible. I'll have to look into this, that maybe some of this gold is gold that they're adding to reserves after a temple lent it to them and decided to take the cash. I don't know. It would seem to me that if the Reserve Bank of India was going to buy gold, they wouldn't buy 2.5 tons of them. They'd buy a decent chunk, not 2.5 tons. But we'll see where that went. This story here. India holds the key to silver's future wealth. That was with Wealth Watchman. You can check that video out. You get a fine interview there. And then I had Salivate Metal on just a couple hours ago, and he talked about gold and silver. So very interesting indeed. Bitcoin pumper, I'm not going to go through. They're just in full force. All these Bitcoin pumps going up, going higher. It's 64,000, 6 million. It's ridiculous. But the Bitcoin pump of the week was from Max Kaiser, some small lending platform, which Matt called a bang. Huge U.S. empire just got kicked in the nuts by Bitcoin. China, Russia, Iran, and Germany are dropping SWIFT. Bitcoin to 100,000. Germany's not dropping SWIFT. Oh my, that was a pump. There's always a good gold pump. What gold pumps did we have? Central banks are buying. No, they're not. I'm not going to get into that right now. There you go. Let's see what big pump. Now here's Ann Ref, a guest on the Smaulgld subscribers. Chinese communists are about to abandon their unprecedented in human history banking credit creation for the monetary straitjacket of the gold-backed yuan any day now. Of course they are. My newsletter will show you how. Subscribe for $30 a month and I will tell you the secret. Yep, here we go again. Gold-backed yuan. Game changer. Comex default. So Japan is having trouble finding recycled silver for its Olympic medals. That's going to be a game changer. Silver shortage. Yeah, whatever happened? The imminent COMEX default, dollar collapse, gold back yuan, sovereign size gold buy in 45 days. The other one, silver shortage, was the commitment of traders never happened before. Net spec short, all this BS. They're talking about imminent rise. Yeah, price is the same as it ever was. This guy found this. You should check this out. One man found stolen, buried 900 pounds of gold in the San Francisco Bay muck. He tunneled his way into a place. I think he used to work there. Got into the safe. It was basically like Alcatraz, and every night he took some gold out, but eventually got himself caught. War on Cash, Australia, to introduce 10,000 cash limit for payments. This is disturbing. All right, that about does it. Thank you very much for checking out Smaulgld. Please consider becoming a Smaulgld patron if you enjoyed this report, or donating to Smaulgld via PayPal, Bitcoin, or Litecoin. Thank you very much.